Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph, and if you're new here, I'm Steph. Okay, I decided that I wanted to do a weekly vlog, and it's gonna be romance themed. I don't know what's come over me, but in October I started reading Blood Mercy, which is fantasy romance. I fell in love with it. And then in November I read The Beautiful Ones, fell in love with that. That one's like a Regency romance. Ever since then, I have been reading romance at least between every single fantasy book that I read. And in January, I've already read like 5 romances, I think. If you're asking yourself because you're new here, why is this weird? I was a self-proclaimed non-romance reader. I really was very picky about romances, and I just like avoided it at all costs. But now I'm loving it.
I'm living, laughing, loving for romance.
So anyway, I've realized that the love of my life is Mariana Zapata. So for this vlog, I'm gonna be reading from From Lukov with Love, which I've actually already started. I'm like 230 pages into it. I'm really liking it. The dynamic between the love interests is hilarious because they're kind of, I don't want to call them enemies because I really don't think when people say enemies to lover in a contemporary romance that that's what they mean. To me, that's just not how it feels. I think they're like rivals, or they have a misunderstanding between one another, which makes them dislike one another. So these two have a rivalry, I feel, and they dislike each other based off things they think they know about one another. And our main character, Jasmine, she's basically at the tail end of her career. She's getting too old to be in ice skating anymore. She has a lot of injuries, and her ice skating partner, who she's been with for a while, actually has decided to move on with somebody else. And then Ivan, the love interest, he has won many different medals. I think he won an Olympic medal. He's won many competitions. He needs a new partner, and him and his coach ask Jasmine if she would be willing to skate with him for a year. So it's only slotted for a year, and then she's gonna move on and he's gonna move on. Obviously, that's probably not gonna happen. But the thing between Jasmine and Ivan is that they've known each other forever. She's actually best friends with his little sister, and they spew insults at each other all the time, and it's very funny to me. It's very hilarious to me. So far, this one's very interesting to me because usually Mariana Zapata has a pretty big age gap, like at least 10 years. And these two are actually closer in age. I think there's maybe a 5-year age gap, but I think it's like 3 or 4. I don't think it's 5 years. And usually the man is like in his 40s and the woman's in her late 20s, early 30s. They're both in their 20s at this point. So this is really interesting because I've read 3 other Mariana Zapatas this month. And yeah, usually it's the age gap that I mentioned before. So this is fun. I have learned that I love a sports romance, and I used to love ice skating growing up. I really wanted to be Michelle Kwan, and if I couldn't be her, I wanted to be her best friend. So I love ice skating, and it's very interesting to learn about the sport in here. I do feel like Mariana Zapata, and she could be blowing smoke up my ass by all means, but I do feel like she does a lot of research within the sports because Culty, another one that I read, was soccer. And while there wasn't that much on the soccer field happening, it seemed like she understood the mechanics and like did research into injuries and women's soccer. And in here, it does seem like she knows what she's talking about when it comes to ice skating, but I am not an ice skater. I never have been. I know I just said that I wanted to be Michelle Kwan. That doesn't mean that I knew how to ice skate. I just had very ambitious dreams that I was never going to go for because I didn't ice skate. I did do gymnastics for 8 years though, so there is that. There's something there. Yeah, I think that she understands the mechanics of it. Some of the things she's talking about feel very authentic, but again, I don't really know. I should also mention that I had both audiobooks for With Lukov with Love and The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I asked Erin from Booked and Busy, and she picked obviously With Lukov because it's actually one of her favorite Mariana Zapatas, if not her favorite. I know she really liked Culty as well, so I don't know which one is her favorite, but she is the reason I'm reading this. In terms of what else I'm gonna be reading in this vlog, I will probably pick up The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and then I also have another book from the library because I've been looking up small town romances. So the other one that I have is from that same author who did Love Light Farms, but it's the other one. Oh, I have both, In the Weeds and Mixed Signals. So I'll probably pick one of those. I won't read both of them. But I'm gonna go make a matcha and go to work because I'm just at lunch right now and I gotta go back to work. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my hair, but good morning. So it is Tuesday, which is actually my late day into work. So on Tuesdays, I try to be as productive as I can be since I have a lot more time in the morning. Tuesdays always kind of look different because sometimes I try to do a few chores around the house so that my Friday isn't jam-packed with catching up on everything that I didn't do during the week. And then I am trying to get in a lot of reading this morning. I know I had mentioned what I kind of wanted to read for this vlog, but as always, my mood is dictating something different. Things are changing. It's only slightly because I can only read this one physically since the audiobooks don't exist for this. And I still have been reading pretty slow physically these days, but I want to jump back in, okay? I want to jump back in to Blood Solace. If you watched my videos last year, if you watched my favorite video, then you'll know that the second book in this series was my all-time favorite. I'm really loving this series. I love this couple. It's fantasy romance. It's on KU. I was already like 100 and something pages into this book. Wait, do I have a bookmark in there? A different one than what you're already seeing? I do. I don't even remember doing that. So apparently I guesstimated wrong and there was a little bookmark in there, but it's hidden. So I'm actually further than what you're seeing. If I don't restart this, then I'm probably just gonna try to jump in where I remember the most. I don't think I'm gonna be able to remember up to 190 pages of what I read last time of this, you know? I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. So I'm either gonna restart it or try to jump in where I do remember, because there is a lot that I remember from this, but I also don't know if I'm just like blurring the second one with this one. Okay, I need to make some tea and like wake up.
That I've told and many secrets that I hold. Not ready to see the truth unfold. Didn't know that time could go so slow. If only I just listened to your warning. That my foolishness had consequences. Going to confession, desperate for redemption, I listen to God's word.
Hello. So I'm ready for work. I finished Luca with Love. I loved it. So there are 3 Mariana Zapatas that I've given like 4.5/5 stars. I think I'm gonna reevaluate my ratings of romance, you know, as I get further into my romance journey, because I'm definitely starting to see a trend of what works for me, and maybe it's not the best thing to continue reading the same author for all of my romance reads, but Mariana just has like a chokehold on me right now. So I gave this a 4.5 stars. This definitely bumped culty down for me. So I'll talk about that at another point in time because I have a whole video planned to talk about like my romance reading journey. But this one definitely bumped culty out of its current position. I love this so much. This spoke so deeply to my ice skating girl heart that never existed but always wanted to thrive, you know? So if you know anything about Mariana Zapata, you will know that everything is a slow burn. There's usually only one like sex scene. That's like the scene where they are finally getting together. It's usually very close to the end. And then there's like an epilogue that's like the happily ever after. So this one really stood out to me and bumped culty down because I loved the dynamic between Ivan and Jasmine. Like, they were so funny. There was a lot of banter where it felt like they were picking on each other, but really they were just being assholes because they're assholes, and like they're both very aware of it. And it's cool because I think the other thing I really love about Mariana Zapata is there's different aspects within these characters' lives that they're trying to work through. So Jasmine has a lot of need of being validated, and that's really coming from the fact that her father was never a really great father to her, and she always felt like her father liked her the least out of all of her siblings, and that he was always very judgmental of her choice to be a figure skater. And because she wasn't winning, you know, because She wasn't number one. He was always like, maybe you should go to college. Maybe you should try to figure something else out for your life because this isn't sustainable type of thing. And she took that to mean that he didn't believe in what she was doing or even good at this sport. And in reality, like, different things are going on. You know, you get the backstories, but at the same time, I do feel like there isn't necessarily like this quick fix to a relationship situation. So her and her dad finally have conversations about this and how she feels, but that doesn't mean that the relationship is automatically fixed. And you see that even at the end. I really enjoy that. That's happened in pretty much every single book. There's always some hard-hitting aspect to it. And I seem to really love that. So it really worked for me in here. I also just really love Ivan as a love interest. I don't know that I've been obsessed with any of the male love interests so far. Like, I like them. Specifically, I like Rhodes in All Roads Lead Here because he's a grumpy mountain man and I really enjoyed that. But in this one, I actually really liked Ivan the most. I think he's probably my favorite love interest that I've read from Mariana Zapata. So this was a really great time. I'm so thankful that Erin picked this one because I think this is one of her favorites, if not like her second favorite. And she even said that I deserve to know Ivan, and now I understand why. Oh, the other thing about Mariana Zapata, which I'm obviously traditionally not a romance reader. This is very new to me, and I started out with Mariana Zapata for the most part. I recognize that most romances are not between 500 and 700 pages, but I think because I primarily read fantasy has prepared me for this moment of reading Mariana Zapata because her books are always between 500 and 700 pages. In terms of Blood Sanctuary, I didn't get to read that much. I was reading it while I was making breakfast and then eating breakfast, but I didn't get to read that much by the time I went and got ready. But obviously I'm about to go to work, and so I don't know what I'm gonna listen to on my lunch break. I have those two audiobooks I talked about before, the one by the author, I think her name is like B.K. Borison, the one who wrote Love Light Farms, that like most people didn't even like it. But it's the other two. I think it's a spring and a summer one. I think I'm gonna read the synopsis of both of them. I just ended up on a whim checking them out from the library, but I think I'm gonna read the synopsis for both of them and see, you know, which one sounds more appealing, and that'll probably be the audiobook that I listen to. Although I also have the audiobook for The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, which is another Mariana Zapata, but that is also a 500+ page book, and I just don't think that I want to start that right now. Good morning. It's Wednesday. I did read last night, which I think is part of the reason why I didn't sleep very well, because I was reading on my Kindle and I don't have it set where I can see like the time or anything, and realized that I read till like almost 1 in the morning. But you know what? I am now, let's double check, because I think I'm 27% in, but let's actually get an accurate number. Okay, so I'm 26% into Blood Sanctuary Part 1. While I'm not totally in a place where I'm reading physically very fast or very often, I feel like this book is just so easy to get through really quickly because things are always happening and you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen next? So because I decided to start Blood Sanctuary on a whim, I never really talked about what the series is, but the first one is Blood Mercy, which I absolutely loved, and then Blood Solace is the second one. If you watch my favorites video, you will know that this is one of my favorite books of last year, but I love both of these so much. They're pretty chunky. They're like 600-page fantasy romance. It's about vampires, but it's not like the vampire lore that you were used to. It's vampire lore that's like very opposite of what I've ever seen done with vampires. As a matter of fact, it's almost as if vampires are the good guys in here. I mean, I feel like you could argue that Twilight tried to do that, but the lore here is so much more interesting, and I feel that this is more fantastical than like the urban fantasy that most vampire lore, you know, surrounds with books. And these like have such great world building, and like the character dynamics are amazing. Like there's great side characters, but also our two main characters are so great, and their romance. It's like this slow burn pining, which definitely is what I love in a romance, is like slow burn pining. Obviously, I love a long, chunky boy. Also, if we can take a minute to appreciate these covers, because they do something for me. But yeah, our main characters are Leo and Cassia. Leo is the vampire, aka Hesperine. That's how I think you pronounce it, but that is the vampire race within this book. And then Cassia is human, and she is a princess, but she's the bastard of the king, and he sort of uses her life as leverage. The king's basically always like, Cassia, I'm gonna use you until you're no longer useful, and then I'm gonna kill you. And Leo is an ambassador, and so in the first book, they end up meeting because there's this winter solstice that happens that is supposed to strengthen the ties between the Hesperines and the humans, because their ties have always been very tenuous. It hasn't been a great relationship, and currently Cassia's father, who is the king, he seems to be wanting to strengthen the ties, but not for the purpose that they are intended. He seems to have something up his sleeve, and Cassia is very determined to figure out what's going on. So Cassia and Leo kind of make this tentative relationship slash contract between one another to try to be as honest as possible with each other and like figure out what the king is up to, because it doesn't seem well. But in making that contract and developing that relationship, they end up, you know, falling for each other. But it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet situation where they're not supposed to be together. And like, this is forbidden romance. So that's mainly the synopsis for the first book. I'm obviously at the third book, so I'm not going to give you many updates that would be or feel spoilery, but I will say that the politics in here are obviously ramping up. There's a lot of tension with Cassio, I just gave them a ship name, between Cassia and Leo for certain reasons, and you are getting introduced into a lot of new characters, which I'm loving. I'm really loving a lot of the side characters here. There's very much a found family moment, and that's one of my favorite tropes as well. And the world building just continues to be great. Like, we're getting more and more about this world, about these magic systems. And I mean, the one thing I've always said about this series is there is quite a bit of info dumping. So if you are not somebody who likes info dumping in any capacity, like, maybe avoid this series, because there is a lot of info dumping. Like, obviously she's creating this entire lore based around a very well-known creature, you know, a vampire, but making it very different. So she does have info dumping moments, and for me, I think there's a combination of really great placement with those info dumps, and sometimes like it just feels like an info dump. You know, the first book especially struggles with this just because you are being introduced into this world for the first time, and Cassia is basically the vessel of learning what Hesperines are and what they believe and how Hesperines are made and blah, 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 blah. So there is probably the most info dumping in the first one, but I mean, it didn't really bother me apparently because I still love this series a lot. So yeah, I am 26% into that. I'll probably continue reading that this morning. But I also yesterday was listening to In the Weeds by BK Borison, Burger King Borison, I think is what it's called. I'll put the picture here. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm 25% into it right now. It's fine. It's interesting because in this one, like they say one night stand, but it was like 2 nights of sleeping together. As they were strangers, they met at a bar, slept together for 2 nights, and then she like peaced out. Someone's calling me. Hello?
Rise and shine.
Hello. Hi, so Christine called me, so I was talking to her, and then my camera actually died, so I never finished updating you, but I was telling you I was reading In the Weeds by BK Have It Your Way Borison, and I'm 42% now. Earlier, I was like 20% or something like that. I'm very bored by this. I feel like the 2 characters have zero chemistry, which is like kind of ironic because the beginning of this book starts out with a prologue where they've had a 1 night stand or like 2 nights where they slept together at this convention or something. And then she leaves and sort of ditches him, and he's like, okay, well, I guess she's not interested in me, but he keeps thinking about her all the time. And then it turns out that she's an influencer, which you learn about in Love Light Farms, because that is this series, but I didn't want to read Love Light Farms because it's supposed to be a Christmas book, and I just didn't want to read that right now. So this is the second one. Anyway, you find out that she's really unhappy with her job of being an influencer. She's trying to search for something that will make her happy, and the first place that she wants to go, I don't remember what this town is called, Inglewild. So she returns to the small town of Inglewild. So I actually really wanted to read this because I love a small town romance I'm finding. But I just don't feel like they have any chemistry. Like I said, it feels ironic because they've already slept together. Not that sleeping together means that you have any chemistry, you know, like relationship type of chemistry, but you might have good sexual chemistry. Anyway, it feels weird. It's kind of boring to be 40% in, and I'm just not interested in anything. I'm not even really interested in this town. None of the side characters are sticking out to me, let alone the main characters. It also says that it's a romantic comedy. That is the funniest part about it all, because I don't think that this is a romantic comedy. I'm 40% in, and I can tell you right now, I've laughed at nothing. Maybe my humor is broken. I don't know if I'm going to finish this, so I think I'm going to look for another audiobook. I don't think I'm going to start at The Wall of Winnipegamy, but don't quote me on that. Hello friends, it's me. I have a major migraine right now, but I wanted to let you know that I got home from work, and on my way home, I actually finished In the Weeds by B.K. Borson, so I didn't end up DNFing it. But while it was cute, like I can admit that it was cute, there were some moments that I really liked. This isn't going to be something that I remember. It's not going to be a favorite romance. I don't even know if I want to read the next book in the series, which is I think it's Mixed Signals or something. It's the baker. It's her romance. I think I may have tried to describe this book, but I don't know if I actually successfully did it. So the characters' names are Evie and Beckett, and you are introduced to Evie and Beckett in the first book. So fast forward months later, Evie left Beckett, never contacted him again, and she's feeling really listless. She's like a social media influencer, and she has a really big following that has led her to a lot of opportunities, but she's feeling like that's not what she wants to do anymore. She's not finding a lot of joy or happiness in that job anymore, in that role anymore, and so her mind keeps wandering back to Inglewild. Her mind keeps wandering back there and to Beckett, and so she decides to go and stay there for a time and try to find her happiness. Obviously her happiness is Beckett, like, let's be real. So then you have Beckett, who is working on this farm, and he can't stop thinking about Evie and those 2 nights that they had together. The other thing that's really interesting about him is his family life, which I feel that we didn't really get enough of in this book, and I think that's why it's so maybe bland for me. The focus there wasn't really a focus other than this couple finally getting together, but you don't get to really know the characters surrounding him. Like, there are some stories about them that are definitely left untold. I do like the message of, like, you're trying to find yourself, and maybe it's not the thing that you're currently in, and you decide to reevaluate that and find a new piece of yourself. I really like that. And I do think the 2 love interests are very cute. Like, they are cute. They're sweet to one another. You could tell that they liked each other. Whatever. Maybe one night stands to like lovers. I don't know what that trope would be. Maybe I don't like that. I'm just not going to remember this at all. So there's that. So apparently I'm back into fantasy romance pretty heavy. I just read like 1 fucking chapter, and now suddenly I'm back into fantasy romances, and I decided to download. I'm gonna show you. No, I'm not, because my storage is almost full. I decided to download The Bridge Kingdom, so I'm gonna be listening to that.
My girl thinks I'm dead inside. 23, she's full of life. I'm holding her tight while she softly bites.
Hello, good morning. I just woke up. Sorry that I did not update at all yesterday. I've just been having a really bad migraine, but I'm feeling a bit better today, even though I didn't really sleep. I was reading. I was getting through Blood Solace and The Bridge Kingdom. I'm like 20% into that. I just had a really bad headache, and then I was in a really weird mood yesterday, so I just didn't want to talk to the camera. So I'm now like 48% into Blood Sanctuary. I'm really enjoying this one. This is definitely not my favorite installment so far. There's something that I've noticed that I don't know if it's me or if it's the fact that, you know, this is written in a very formal way. The language is very formal, so sometimes the dialogue feels very stilted to me. The only way I can explain it is, I mean, as you know, I've said there is quite a bit of info dumping in here, and especially in the first 3 books, like, you're getting introduced to a lot of things and the world and people and like their magic and the magic system. And so even in this first half of the 3rd book, you're getting to know a lot about different people's stories and magic systems. So anyway, there's a lot of like conversations that happen that take whole chapters that you're getting through those conversations. The thing is I don't really mind that. It's just that sometimes in those conversations, I don't know if it's the language, the formality of the language, but the conversations feel really stilted and it kind of takes me out of it. And it's something I've noticed in the first 3 books just generally, that some of the dialogue, some of the info dumping really takes me out of it. And I don't know if it's just because it's info dumping and you know what's happening, you know what's being done, or if it is because of the formality of the language, it like stilts the conversation a little bit. Because instead of the conversations feeling really candid and like they're a heart to heart, it just feels very formal and stilted. So that's the only way I can describe it. But otherwise, I'm still loving this, and I'm very interested in how this book is going to end. And if we're going to be left kind of on a little bit of a cliffhanger, because this is part 1 of 2 parts. Either way, I mean, I have the 2nd part, so it doesn't matter. I've also started the Bridge Kingdom series, which I don't know, it feels quite cheesy. So I've been listening to the audiobook, and I really like the narrator. The narrator actually narrates most of Leigh Bardugo's stuff, apparently. She sounds very much like the woman who narrates the Sarah J. Maas books as well. Anyway, I really like her as a narrator. I'm not super invested 20% in right now. Like, I understand what's going on. There's this arranged marriage, and that's basically because the kingdom that Laura, who's the wife, is from, is like really struggling. So in order to be able to get resources, they've made a deal with this kingdom who has an abundance of supplies and resources. They get one of the daughters from this other kingdom, and the hope for Laura is that she can kill this king and be able to help her kingdom thrive and her sisters. But the book starts out where she kills her sisters, but she doesn't really, which you know that in the beginning, she doesn't really kill them. It's like this poison that they'll wake up from. And she's hoping that in plotting this, that she can help her sisters have a better life and get away from the king, who's pretty corrupt and shitty. He's pretty shitty. But I think the focus is on the fact that like the king and the queen, these 2 people who were in this arranged marriage, are like supposed to hate each other, but they're gonna fall in love. I'm just not invested right now. Hello, I just got back from running errands with Christine. We ran a lot of errands, actually. It started out as a coffee shop trip, which our coffee shop trips never are just coffee shop trips. Like, we go and do a million things. So I needed to go to Target and Sephora. I got these like workout shorts, some black ones and gray ones. I think Christine got the same exact ones. And I got some other things like some hair stuff and mascaras. And then we had lunch, which I had all the intentions of like showing you what we had. We got ramen at one of our favorite ramen places, but the food came and I was ready to eat, and so I don't have any evidence of it happening. so sorry. That being said, I obviously didn't get any reading done. I did read a bit this morning, and I did read a little bit more of The Bridge Kingdom right before Christine came and picked me up. I don't think I'm gonna continue on with it, if I'm honest with you. Like, I think it could be interesting, but I'm not captivated enough at like 30% in to even want to continue on with this book. So it sucks because I do hear, like, for the most part, pretty good things about it, but I'm just not invested, and I can put it down and like not think about it at all. And that's kind of what's been happening this whole time, is that I just, you good? Anyway, that's just what's been happening, is every time I start to read The Bridge Kingdom, I'm like, I could just be reading Blood Sanctuary right now. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spend the rest of the day, for the most part, reading Blood Sanctuary and then close out this vlog. Good morning. So I wanted to close out this vlog and talk about some of the ratings that I gave the books that I read in this video, because I don't think I really said some of the ratings. Some of them I DNF'd, but yeah, we'll go through them. Also, I did get to read more Blood Sanctuary last night, so I am here. I think on the Kindle it says that I'm like 65% into it, so I'll probably be able to finish it within the next couple of days. But like I said, I still think certain conversations are a little bit stilted because of the formality of the language, but otherwise, I am really enjoying where this is going. By the 50% mark, there was some plot situations, some reveals that happened that I think are very interesting. I think I said in another clip that this by far is not my favorite installment, but this is also part one of 2 parts of a book. So I'm sure there's a lot more that will happen in the second part of this book. There was also a revelation in here that I think goes with my predictions for this book. So I've talked to Erin about it because she's read all of these. So I've told her some of my predictions about this book, and something that was revealed in here kind of aligns with my predictions about something that's happening within the plotline that I can't really talk about because it's revealed in the second book. But I find that to be very interesting. Because I could potentially be correct to a degree, but I don't think I'm like fully correct. Anyway, I'm having a good time. I'm excited to be back. I hope to finish this by the end of the weekend. And then, as you know, I'm DNFing the Bridge Kingdom book. I just don't have enough interest in it to pick it up. And as soon as I said that I was going to DNF it, I felt a lot of relief about that. So I'm not going to go back to that one. And then I read Into the Weeds. Based off of my call pile rating, it's a low 3 stars, which makes sense to me because I do think that there were some moments in there that I really enjoyed. So a low 3 stars makes sense to me. And then when I did the call pile rating for Look Up With Love, that was a 4.5, which also feels right to me. That also makes a lot of sense. So yeah, overall, it was a pretty good reading week. I do hope that I can do more romance reading vlogs in the future, but otherwise, I hope that you had a good week as well. If you've made it this far and you want to leave an emoji, you can leave a rose emoji, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.